giggled at my boss openly mocking him in front of everyone until he got furious and did this.
Hello, Reddit. My name is Fiona, and I'm 29 years old. I work in a fashion designing company as the personal assistant to the CEO, and I've lived with my fiance up until now. I really need some advice, guys, and it's kind of urgent. It's about my fiance, Noah, whom I've been dating for the past 6 years now. He suddenly decided to end our relationship, and publicly, too. It's actually my fault. I mean, totally. All the fault has been mine, and I've tried several times to apologize to him and let him know how sorry I am for the whole thing. But Noah won't even give me a chance. He won't forgive my infidelity. And I really cannot lose Noah. Everything I've worked for and built my whole life would not be perfect or complete if Noah is not in the picture. I really need Noah to forgive me. I desperately want him to. I know I did an awful thing, and I've tried so hard to get him to forgive me, but he won't, which is why I'm here. This really is my last resort. I don't know what to do anymore. At a party organized by my boss, which I invited Noah to as my plus one, he, my boss, made a show of mocking Noah. My boss kept mocking him openly in front of everyone until Noah got furious and did this. He, Noah, broke up with me publicly, right there in front of everyone, after announcing that he knew about my affair with my married boss. After he said his piece, he walked out of the party and presumably out of my life. I won't even begin to tell you about the embarrassment, the finger-pointing, and the whispering that started immediately after Noah said his piece. I wasn't even concerned about it all. All I heard, and what stuck in my head, was that Noah was breaking up with me, and I did not want that to happen at all. I've tried so hard to get Noah to even speak to me again, but he just refuses to. I know I did something really terrible, having an affair with my married boss while also being in a relationship. It wasn't exactly my fault. Well, it is, but I always thought I had a valid reason for doing so. But the reason now all seems very invalid compared to me losing Noah over it. I met my boss, Edward, way back before he was even the CEO of our company. We lived in the same neighborhood growing up, and although we attended the same high school, we were never really friends until university. Edward was the book nerd at that time, and he barely had any friends. I was not exactly the social butterfly either, but I did have more friends than he did. We became friends when we attended the same university. We had mutual friends, so we were always hanging out with the same crowd. Edward and I eventually started dating, and we did so for 3 years. I loved Edward so much, and we literally did everything together. All of our friends knew about us and how crazy we were for each other. When we were in our final year, Edward got a job in another country, but he was asked to finish his education first. It was an amazing offer, and I knew he earned it because of how smart he was. I was very happy for him, but at the same time I felt sad because I didn't know if I could handle a long-distance relationship. Edward reassured me several times, and I wanted to believe what he said, not only because he said it, but because I was too in love with him to let go. We eventually graduated, and within a month, Edward traveled. His then company paid for everything concerning his travel. The first 3 months were sweet torture. We talked all the time on the phone, updated each other on everything we did, and missed each other greatly. But eventually, our conversations reduced to twice or once a day, and it wasn't even on my side. Edward was always busy, and whenever we did talk, he was either too tired to have a long conversation or had only a few minutes to spare, or he couldn't even speak to me at all. This went on for a year until the day I called Edward, and he quickly dismissed me off the phone but didn't end the call. I heard a lady's voice in the background calling out for him. The problem was she wasn't just calling out for him, she called him baby. At first, I tried lying to myself that I heard wrong and that it was probably just a female friend. He was allowed to have female friends. I didn't want to become paranoid. But I started to slowly lose my mind, though I wanted to just give him the benefit of the doubt. It had been another 3 months of literally being in the relationship all by myself when I heard from someone, a mutual friend of ours, that Edward had come home only to get married to his pregnant bride. I was so shocked because I knew for sure it wasn't me since there wasn't a baby in me that I was aware of. I had a mental breakdown. For 2 whole months, I did nothing but stay in bed and cry my eyes out. Eventually, I had to move on, and since I hadn't gotten a job, I settled for part-time jobs, especially because my parents were nagging me about getting one. I saved enough to move out of the town where my parents lived because everything reminded me of Edward. I wanted to forget everything about him. Moving out of town was harder than I thought because everything was much tougher. I couldn't pay my house rent, so eventually I was evicted. Luckily, I met Dora, who allowed me to stay at her place for a while as I worked my part-time jobs. It was then I met Noah, my boyfriend. He had always been a regular customer at the cafe where I worked, and we had a good rapport. He was always teasing me whenever he came to get his regular coffee every morning before work. I liked seeing him because he kind of made my day better. But for almost a week, he didn't show up to get his coffee, and I was very worried because he hardly missed a day. I once jokingly told him his stomach would be a coffee bean farm by now because of the amount of caffeine he took, and he said he usually worked really late and started early, so coffee was the only good part of his day. So I knew there must have been a reason he was avoiding coffee, but there was no way to contact him. When he finally showed up after 2 weeks, I curiously asked why he hadn't been in, and he told me he'd had an accident and had actually been in the hospital for a week, with his company giving him another week of rest too. I was devastated on his behalf and wished him well. Soon enough, Noah asked for my number since we were already friends, and I happily gave it to him, glad I could finally talk to him any time instead of looking forward only to when he came to where I worked. We started texting and I knew I liked him very much, but I felt I'd already been scarred by Edward and didn't want to start anything new. However, Noah was nothing like Edward. He treated me right and with respect. He could easily tell when I was unhappy and did everything in his power to make me happy. Eventually, Noah asked me to be his girlfriend, and I agreed, but not without doubts. At first, I pretended I wasn't jealous when he got calls from his coworkers, especially when they were female. I didn't want him to think I was insecure, so I kept quiet. But soon enough, I couldn't bear the thought of him in any space with another woman besides me. I was paranoid. I started fights whenever he got a call from work because I instantly believed he was cheating on me. Noah tried several times to reassure me, but I couldn't settle it in my head. I knew in my heart that Noah loved me very much and would never cheat on me, but it was as though my body projected a different meaning entirely whenever I saw any female around him. One time, on one occasion, I almost hit his cousin who came to visit him and stayed with the intention of meeting me. By that point, we were 2 years into the relationship, and I had moved in with Noah since I had no place of my own, and Noah suggested it since we were together. When I heard a female laughing in the kitchen, I saw red, dashed for her, and almost hit her. Luckily, Noah saw me coming and was able to remove me before any real damage was done. When I finally knew who she was, I felt so embarrassed and apologized several times for it, but that was the last time his cousin visited the house. Noah was angry with me, but eventually forgave me after I kept pleading. The crazy thing was, he had called me earlier that day when I was at work to tell me his cousin was stopping by and wanted to see me before leaving. But I lost all sense of reasoning when I saw her sitting comfortably in the kitchen, eating my fries, and laughing at something Noah said. Eventually, I got tired of working part-time jobs and wanted a real job, and Noah pulled a favor for me. He asked a friend, and I got a job as a secretary at a printing press. The job was stressful, especially because my boss was a big nag. He complained about everything, and even if everything was okay, he still found something to complain about. I hated working there, but the pay was good, and I didn't want to go back to part-time jobs. I wanted a normal 9-to-5 job like everyone else. So I kept going for a year until the company went bankrupt because my boss treated it like his personal account, so he eventually had no money to pay anyone. He decided to let everyone go. Because I was desperate, I asked him to cut my salary in half so I could keep my job, and he agreed at first. This went on for 2 months. Because almost everyone had left, the workload became too much for the few of us who remained. I had to triple task to get things done, and it took its toll on me, but I didn't back down. Noah advised me several times to quit so I wouldn't have to deal with the unappreciative comments I got nearly every day from my boss. Eventually, my boss got married, but with no money for the wedding, he sold what was left of the company without caring about us, those who still worked there. The new company planned to convert the place into a warehouse, so there was literally no role for me as a secretary or any other position. I had no choice but to leave. I didn't want to stay at home because of my mental health. I am an overthinker, and I knew staying at home would do me no good as I would become very paranoid and start becoming more obsessed with monitoring Noah than I already was. So staying at home before I finally got the job as a personal assistant had been quite torturous, more so for Noah than for me. I felt like he should have more time for me, and whenever he had to work, I felt jealous, especially knowing he had female coworkers. If he called to say he had to work late, I started overthinking and ended up stalking him to see whether he was really working or not. There was one time I actually stalked him on a trip. Noah had to go on a sudden work trip, and I had a fight with him about it because I thought he was lying. Eventually, when Noah left the next day, I packed a bag and followed him. It wasn't until I saw him sitting with two business partners that I felt reassured he was actually there for business, and both business people were male. Noah didn't know I'd stalked him until he was telling me about his trip and trying to describe the weird color of one partner's suit, and I blurted out to correct him on the actual color. He was shocked I knew the color his partner wore, and he realized I'd stalked him. Noah kept insisting I trust him, and I did, but I couldn't help my thoughts. So I asked Noah again to help me get a job. Luckily, he accepted and asked a cousin of his who worked at the fashion designing company where I now work to get me a job. Fortunately, the personal secretary job was open, and I took it. I was so happy to work in a fashion line because I love fashion designing so much. I never learned how to design despite my love for it, so I was thrilled to work in a place where I could see firsthand what they did. When I got the job, my boss, the CEO, was out of the country on a work trip, but I was updated on everything I needed to know by his last personal assistant, who had to quit because she was heavily pregnant, and her husband insisted she stop working. She had shown me how everything worked, and within a week, I was helping sort out everything the boss needed from here. It took another month before the CEO finally came around. It was a huge shock to me when I realized that my boss was actually Edward. Apparently, he had quit working in the company he was with while we were dating, after he got married, and decided to take over his wife's father's company. When Edward saw me, realizing I was the one he had been talking to on the phone for over a month, he was also shocked I was his personal assistant. I thought about quitting the job, but the pay was just too good to make me quit. I decided in my head that if Edward wasn't going to fire me, then I wasn't going to quit. And I decided that I had already moved on, so there was no need to quit, and I didn't tell Noah anything about Edward. He only knew him as my ex who got married, but he didn't know he was my boss. There was no reason not to tell him, but I just felt it wasn't necessary. Edward summoned me into his office the next day, and I thought it was because he wanted to break things off with me. But instead, he praised my work for the short time I'd worked with him, even though it had been mostly over the phone, saying I had been efficient. He also said he didn't want our past interfering with our present and didn't want to fire me because of our history. We both agreed that the past was in the past and that we should move on. We worked closely together for a month before our affair actually began. Of course, as per my job description, I had to follow him around, set up his schedules and all, so we worked closely despite it being uncomfortable for me. I couldn't exactly complain because I wanted the job. One time, Edward asked me to pack a bag for a 3-day work trip, and I obliged. I told Noah about it, and he had no objection since it was work, and probably because he didn't even know Edward was my ex. When we got to the place, I expected to get called up for work after I settled in, but instead I was treated to a nice dinner. Edward even requested that I dress nicely for the night, and I did exactly that, thinking it was for work purposes. When I asked what it all was for, he told me he wanted to apologize for what he did to me. He told me that he had met Nina, and they had been friends but ended up having drunken sex, resulting in her pregnancy. The only thing he felt he could do was marry her. He told me how much he missed me and regretted marrying Nina. I told him I was in a relationship that I didn't want to jeopardize. I hadn't wanted to cheat on Noah, so I turned down his offer to be together, despite both of us being in committed relationships. But Edward didn't stop with just that night. He spent the next 3 days convincing me of how good we could be together. He took me on different dates, and we explored the town together. He even took me shopping and bought me loads of expensive things. I know, I could have rejected going on those dates, and I actually could have gone back home. I wouldn't have gotten fired because he wouldn't have been able to fire me for not staying on a trip that wasn't business related. But I stayed. allowed him to drag me to lunch and dinner at fancy restaurants, and let him buy me clothes and jewelry. And on the last day, I even let him tempt me enough to sleep with him. He asked me to bring some documents to his room, and I did because he said he wanted to check through them before we had to travel back. But instead of checking the documents, he asked me to sit with him and share a bottle of champagne. I obliged, and after a drink, he began telling me how miserable he was with his wife, and that he still regretted losing me. One thing led to another, and before I could understand what was happening, we were already kissing. We had sex. I slept with Edward that night, and when I got back home, I felt really guilty for what I had done. I didn't want Noah finding out. When he asked about the trip, I just grumpily told him it went well. I knew that by seeing my mood, he'd think my boss probably did something upsetting, so I pretended to be sulky about the whole trip. Luckily, he didn't ask me any more questions. Edward continued to demand that I sleep with him, and our affair went on. Most times, we stepped out of the office under the pretense of work and went somewhere else to have sex. He would send me money regularly aside from my salary, and I won't lie. Despite my guilt, I enjoyed spending the money. Noah noticed the change in my wardrobe and kept asking where I got the money, but I kept up the pretense, telling him it was from my salary and that my boss kept giving me raises because I was good at my job. Noah proposed to me on my 29th birthday. He insisted I keep my evening free, so I turned down Edward's plan to take me out that night to celebrate, so I could spend it with Noah. Noah had it all planned out, and it was amazing. I was really surprised when he went down on one knee to propose.
I made it.
That evening, I thought we were just going to have dinner to celebrate my birthday. I didn't think anything unusual until we got to the restaurant. It was dark, and it looked like they were closed. I turned to ask Noah questions, but he just led me inside. As soon as I got in, the lights came on and some people shouted, "Happy birthday." It was our families. Noah had invited our families to celebrate with us, and I was so happy. I was even happier when he got on one knee and proposed to me. But when I got to work the next day and Edward saw the ring on my finger, he started to act like a jealous lover and was grumpy the whole day. In fact, he told me to stop wearing the ring because it was affecting my work, but I knew it wasn't, as the ring was nothing fancy. Ever since Edward found out that Noah and I were planning our wedding, he started to act up, demanding more of my time and asking me to come see him at odd hours. I had to keep my phone on silent most nights because he would suddenly ring me up, drunk, asking if I could come over. Sometimes it was just to ask if I was sharing the same bed as Noah. I knew Noah was starting to get suspicious of the midnight calls, and I lied to him that it was just a spam caller. When Edward realized I wasn't going to pick up his calls, he'd text over and over again. He then started mocking Noah for not being enough, saying that if he were, I wouldn't think to cheat on him, Noah, with him, Edward. He would even go as far as doing it again when we were having sex, saying he'd bet Noah wasn't good enough sexually, which was why I came to him. I said nothing about all this, despite how untrue his conclusions were, because I didn't want to argue, and also because I was getting used to the money he sent me. I loved being able to live a lavish lifestyle, and it didn't have to come from my pocket. He literally paid for everything that involved me. Noah wanted us to start planning our wedding, but he wanted to save up for a house first so we wouldn't have to rent anymore, and I had agreed at first. I had the money to give him to buy a house, but I was scared he'd realize I actually got it from my affair, so I said nothing and allowed him to continue saving up for the house. After a month of being engaged, I kept nagging Noah to get the house as soon as possible so we could get married. I wanted us to marry quickly because I thought that once we were married, I'd be able to stop the affair with Edward and finally be with Noah without feeling so guilty. Eventually, Edward had to host an event to launch the new collection of clothes we had produced. We were told we could bring a partner with us, so I invited Noah as my fiancé. Noah initially didn't want to come along because he knew nothing about fashion and would feel out of place, but I insisted. I couldn't claim to have a fiancé and not invite someone to the party, so I guilt-tripped him into going. Now I wish I hadn't even insisted he come with me, because maybe he'd still be engaged to me right now. We went to the party, and everything was going fine until I introduced Noah to Edward. Edward's countenance changed, and he started to insult Noah. He mockingly asked him questions only to contradict everything Noah said. I was frustrated but couldn't say anything to avoid raising suspicion. The party started, and Edward insisted that Noah and I sit at his table. It was obvious Noah was uncomfortable, and he was only tolerating Edward because of me. I texted Edward to stop insulting Noah, and even added a threat that I'd never let him touch me again if he didn't stop. Well, the text hadn't gotten to Edward because I had mistakenly sent it to Noah. I hadn't even noticed until after the whole party. Edward kept making silly comments about Noah and mocking him until Noah finally got up angrily, announcing publicly what exactly he thought of my boss. He also further announced that he was breaking things off with me and that I could go continue my affair with my married boss. I was so shocked, and it felt like a dream until Noah left, and I realized what had just happened. I got up, not minding the whispers and shock on everyone's faces, and ran after Noah, but he had already left. When I took a cab to our place, he hadn't been home. It's been 4 whole days, and I haven't seen or heard anything from Noah. I've tried calling and texting, but he won't respond to me. Please, guys, I really need your advice. How do I get Noah to forgive me and continue with our plans to marry? The thought of losing Noah is so scary. I really cannot lose him. So please, guys, help me. Update. Hello, Reddit. It's been an awful 2 months, the most dreadful, really. I cannot begin to put into words how I feel. I feel a lot of things, and yet I feel so empty. I lost Noah because of my stupid actions. He won't even have anything to do with me anymore. It really is true, isn't it? You don't know what you have until you lose it. I had Noah. I had the best man with me, but I lost him because of my foolish actions. I stupidly threw away everything I had with Noah. I gambled with it, and I lost. Now that I've had a lot of time to think about what I've done, I realize just how foolishly I behaved. Going back to someone who had hurt me in the first place just for money. Now even Edward is in deep shit. His wife was present at the party and saw everything, so she's filed for divorce. And since everything he has belongs to his wife, I'm guessing he'll be left with nothing. The crazy thing is that doesn't even please me, because I could have said no. I could have avoided all of this in the first place. I should have seen him as the treacherous monster he was after dumping me the first time and still coming back even though he was married. I should have listened to my instinct about him, and I should never have cheated in the first place. I came here thinking I could get some sort of help so I could get Noah back. I realize now what a stupid decision I made. The way you guys just use your words has a way of piercing through my heart, and it lets me know just how much you guys feel about me. Even though we do not know each other physically, your words really traveled far and had their way of hurting me. I know now how stupid I am, thinking I could come in here and get some sort of pity party to help me get back Noah. I feel so afraid, because the future really feels like a long time away, and it's scary because it feels blank. There's no me without Noah. I lost everything when I lost Noah. Loneliness is probably a smaller word compared to how alone I feel right now. Now, the whole reason I had an affair in the first place feels stupid. There wasn't even a valid reason for cheating anyway. It's funny how you think you have everything figured out. Your plans, your dreams, your future, and then, in a minute, everything just unravels and cannot be pieced back together. I'm left to wonder. I wish I had never cheated on Noah. Maybe now we'd be married, living in our own house, and probably trying for kids. I remember that Noah and I discussed once that when we did get married, we wouldn't wait to have kids. Now that plan is gone. In fact, every plan is gone. I'm so miserable. I know that Noah will never forgive me now or ever, and that thought alone is killing enough. I shot myself in the foot, really. How could I have expected that he would truly forgive me after everything that happened? Somehow I thought I could get away with it all. I thought I could end things with Edward without it getting messy, and I could marry Noah without him finding out about my infidelity. How could I ever have thought I could get away with hurting Noah the way I did? Stupid, stupid, stupid me. Crying until my throat feels sore is my everyday normal. Noah was the best man for me, but I kept doing everything to push him away. I nagged, suspected him when indeed I was the suspicious one, and did things that would normally make a man run away. But Noah didn't leave. He kept putting up with me until I finally pushed him to the wall. Just how much he endured with me. I cannot forgive myself for everything I did to Noah. I hate myself so much for everything I did. This guilt will probably be part of my life for the rest of my days on earth. This heavy, painful guilt of having had the best man and yet losing him because I was stupid. I wish I had a manual to navigate this difficult stage of my life. But then again, the manual would probably get to an endpoint. But I know that this pain will probably never stop. And the most painful thing of all is that I deserve the pain. I deserve all of this emptiness inside, and I deserve being cast aside by Noah. I cannot even blame the devil for my mistakes because I made them myself. I had the choice to do otherwise, but I chose to do something as stupid as cheating, and now I have to live with this craziness that is my life now. Update. Hello, Reddit. This is my very last post here. I'm sure y'all are happy I'm finally going to stop posting my sob story. But the reason I kept typing and rambling about the same thing over and over again is because I have no one else to talk to, no one else to share all of this with. You guys, no matter how much your comments hurt, are still the only ones who are actually listening to me right now. Things haven't gotten better, but rather worse, if I could say so. I am still as lonely as one could ever be. I am so alone at the moment, and everything hurts. Really bad, I must say. Have you ever felt so empty? And yet that emptiness still hurts just as badly as having everything. I feel a lot of emotions, and yet I feel nothing. I desperately wish I had done the right things when they did matter. Now it doesn't even matter if I cheated or not because I don't even get the chance to right my wrongs. That feeling of being swept under the rug is just never far. I feel like I really do not exist on this planet anymore. I feel like the living dead. Animals are probably better than me. At least they're fed and checked on to make sure they're fine. Nobody even cares whether or not I am alive. The one person who ever really did, I lost the right to actually call him. Even if I did, I'm sure he wouldn't want to hear anything I have to say. I feel trapped. Trapped under the consequences of my sins and the weight of my sins. How do I move on? How do I even get on? I have absolutely no idea what to do or how to get on. Everything feels too much, but I know I'm the cause of everything. The feeling of drowning just isn't exactly the nicest feeling to have. If a few months already feels like this, I wonder just how a year or 2 years will feel. Though one thing I know for sure is that I will forever live with this pain in my heart. I hurt Noah deeply. I know that, and I will forever be sorry I did. If you ever come across this, Noah, somehow and someplace, I just wanted to tell you how sorry I am. I know that the word sorry could never make up for everything I did to you, and I'm not apologizing because I want you to take me back. No matter how much I want that, I know it's impossible for you to. I know how crazy it must have been for you to find out through a text that I was cheating on you. I'm sorry I ever thought I could get away with everything I did to you. I'm sorry you had to put up with my stupid attitudes throughout our relationship. I just wanted to tell you I know I'll pay for my sins for the rest of my life if that's any consolation. I wish you all the happiness in your life and that you'd find a woman who would treat you like you ought to be treated. It kills me to think that you'd eventually move on or probably may have with another woman. But I know I don't even deserve to think that woman would ever be me. I really am sorry I ever hurt you, Noah. And I sure hope you guys learned something from my life, even though you hate me. Thanks and goodbye. Sometimes when you read about men that were cheated on by their partners, you can't help but ask, how does he feel? What did he do? I just know that he is going to end that marriage and find someone better. Most times the men do deserve someone better, but there's just one problem. Can they fully recover from being cheated on? Will they ever be able to trust anyone again? I recently discovered that my wife of 6 years had been cheating on me for 3 years with a random guy she met at our wedding, and I honestly don't know how I feel or what to do. I am stuck between peacefully filing for a divorce and being on the 9 p.m. news for something I might do. As I write this, I am at a wedding, sitting on the bed while a bag of clothes is placed in front of me. I honestly can't still grasp the situation or how I had been so blinded by the love I had for my war that I didn't notice sooner. I need to tell someone what happened, or else I might potentially lose my mind. My name is Greg Okoro, and I am a dark-skinned 42-year-old, 5'11" male with married to Clara Ade, a light-skinned 36-year-old 5'3" female. Clara and I met at the shopping mall. We both stood at the checkout line when a man came from nowhere and stood of Clara. Being annoyed at his behavior, Clara tapped on his back in order to get his attention before asking him to move to the back of the line because there were people who were there for her. Now, as I had stated before, Clara is 5'3", and this guy stood at least 6 FT tall and looked down at her before responding rudely that she should mind her business and allow him to pay for his groceries. Clara didn't stop, but again asked him to move to the back of the queue, and this really annoyed him because he soon threw his basket of groceries on the floor and was now looking at Clara, the way a lion looks at another lion who enters his territory. But Clara didn't budge, but I knew that if I didn't do anything, things would get out of hand. I ran out of my spot and rushed to where they stood, took Clara's hand and said, "Honey, let's go." They said that Mom is in the hospital, which is a lie, obviously, before dragging her to the counter where the cashier quickly checked out our things. Before leaving, I hurriedly apologized to the man before dragging a shocked Clara behind me. After we had left the mall, she seemed to snap out her shock and asked me who the hell I thought I was. I calmly explained that if I didn't intervene when I did, the guy would have done something to her, and I reminded her that we lived in a country where our safety is not guaranteed by the police. She seemed to calm down after this and thanked me. We exchanged contacts before I walked her to her car and watched her drive off before getting into mine. That singular encounter changed my life forever. Clara and I started texting, meeting for innocent lunch and dinner dates before I asked her to be my girlfriend. She accepted, and it was heaven on earth. I would always wake up to calls from her, surprise visits at house, home-cooked meals, more dates. But we never got too intimate. Clara came from a Catholic family, and they don't take kindly to such things. Her parents are Yoruba and also very traditional, so simple things like lying on the floor to greet them matter a lot. After dating for 3 years, I popped the question and she said yes. I was beyond happy because I have finally found my better half, my missing rib. Cheesy, I know. The wedding was beautiful, and finally it was time to go home and start the rest of our lives. We waited a year before we started trying for kids. The reason for this was because we both agreed that we wanted to have that period all to ourselves and build our careers before we can bring a child into the picture. On the 2nd anniversary of our marriage, Clara surprised me with a positive pregnancy test result, and to say that I was happy was a big lie. I was more than happy, and why wouldn't I be? I was married to the perfect woman, and she was about to give me the perfect child. I always assumed we're happy. I worked hard as an accountant at Advise LLP, CPA firm at 6230 Wilshire BLVD Suite, Yale 192, Los Angeles, CA 9048, United States provide for our comfortable life at LA. I trusted Clara completely and never suspected that anything was wrong. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Now 5 years and 2 kids later, I start noticing some changes. Clara stopped sending me good morning texts. Yes, I know what you're thinking, but even after we got married, she still kept the habit of always sending me good morning texts whenever she woke up. She always got up before I did to take care of the kids and get breakfast ready, but always found time to send me the cutest texts that would leave me smiling and giggling to myself all day. It was always something short and cute, like, if you were a vegetable, you'd be a cucumber, or are you Netflix? Because I could watch you for hours. But all of a sudden, the messages stopped coming. When it first happened, I just brushed it off and assumed that she had a pretty hectic day and must have forgotten. But when 2 weeks had gone back without any good morning texts, I knew that Clara had changed. It was as though she had stopped caring about me and our marriage. The only time I would see her brighten up would be when she's with our kids, but whenever we would be alone, she would be so stiff and uptight with me that every conversation with her feel like a conversation between my boss and I. I thought I had done something wrong and even went as far as apologizing and treating her to a fancy dinner. But even after all that, she still remained the same. She had started keeping late nights, claiming she had to work overtime or meet with friends. She became so distant and cold that she started avoiding my affection and attention. I have never questioned my wife and her work. Neither have I ever imagined her of doing anything to hurt me, so I always went with her excuses. We had to get maid to help take care of the kids while we were at work, but I made sure to always coming back before they went to bed. I always assured them that their mother loved them because my eldest daughter kept asking why her mother was hardly at home and if they had done something to upset their mother. Hearing this from a 4-year-old girl broke my heart, so I told her that her mother just had a lot of work to do, and also reassured them that their mother loved them so much. Each time I tell Clara what the kids say, she promises to change, which she does, but only for a day or two. Now I am a very calm and quiet guy, but for some reason, I was slowly getting agitated by what was going on, but I never for once questioned my wife's faithfulness to me. I always blamed her work or something else for her behavior. I never stopped being a loving and devoted husband who secretly prayed that things go back to the way they were. If someone had told me what the following year would bring and how it would affect me, I would have cussed the person out. The following year started off different. Clara was back to normal and even better than before. She was always smiling and laughing each time I saw her. The good morning texts started coming again, and she even added some happy endings at the end of the day for me, and I couldn't believe how lucky I was. I was also happy to see her spend more time with the children, and she even started coming back from work early. It was truly amazing because at that moment I felt like nothing could ever go wrong with life. One thing that she also started doing the year was going to the gym at night with her friends from work. She went every Sunday and would return to the house some minutes past 8. But she was always in a cheerful mood when she returned, so I didn't question the odd hours. It suddenly changed from every Sunday to Saturdays and Sundays. I didn't mind because her attitude didn't change towards the kids and I, so I turned a blind eye to it. After 6 months of going to night gym, there was no visible change in her body. She was still the same and even added a few pounds. Not that I am complaining about that though. One day I jokingly told her that I would love to join her in her gym sessions, and she immediately tensed up and got all defensive. She said, and I quote, "You don't need to go to the gym with me. It's mostly just ladies working out and talking about their husbands." Upon saying this, it dawned on me that she had never told me the name of her gym or where it was located, so I asked her. She looked at me for some time before she said she needed to use the restroom. My fellow Redditors, the next time I asked about the name and location of the gym, she came prepared with even pictures of herself outside and inside the gym. The gym was Hybrid Gym, LA. After that, I left it alone, but I was still curious as to why she reacted the way she did the first time I asked her about it. It was our wedding anniversary, and I planned to surprise her. I wanted to pay some people to follow me to the gym holding a cake, a money bouquet, and money cake, as well as a saxophone player that was going to play her favorite song for her. I called her sister to help me plan the surprise as well. Follow me there to capture the beautiful moment. Around 5 p.m., everyone was ready and we drove to the gym in my car. Luckily, there was no traffic that day, so we only spent 30 minutes on the road. When we got there, everyone got into place. My sister-in-law started recording on her phone. I held the money bouquet. My Love by Westlife was playing on the saxophone, while those carrying the money cakes were at the back. I couldn't wait to see her face. Upon entering the building, we were met with many shocked and surprised faces, but none of them belonged to Clara. Thinking she might have gone to the restroom, I approached the receptionist and asked her if my wife had arrived. She asked for my wife's name, but after checking her records, she informed me that nobody by that name had registered there. I was confused because my wife had been going there for months, or did I get the name wrong? I asked her sister to call her and ask her where she was, but specifically told her not to inform my wife of my presence. She left to make the phone call while I went back to the car with others. After 5 minutes, she came back with a strange look on her face, and when I asked her what happened, she told me that Clara had told her that she was at the Freehand LA, which was located at 416 W 8th St. Los Angeles, CA 914, United States. I just assumed that it was a work thing, or maybe her friends had lodged her to celebrate her anniversary with her. It's stupid, I know, but I always made excuses for her. I asked if she got the room number from Clara, to which she nodded, and we were off. Now, I am going to be frank with you guys. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what happened. In all my years of existence, I have never had the privilege of wishing that the earth would open up and swallow me, never to spit me back ever again. Thinking about it now makes me physically nauseous and stupid at the same time. How could I not see the signs? Why did I keep making up excuses for her? Why didn't I just confront her? No matter how many times I ask myself these questions, I never get a response. If I had done something earlier, maybe it won't hurt as much as it did now, or maybe I would have left before it was too late. I would still be sane and happy. But no, I chose to be the loving clown who trusted the enemy to take a bullet for me. When we got to the hotel, I told the receptionist about my plan to surprise Clara and even told her that we already knew the room number. She agreed not to call Clara's room and we went up. Again, like before, we got into position, phone recording, saxophone playing, money cakes, and money bouquet ready. I took a huge breath before knocking on the door. The door opened, and before me stood my wife in a towel with her hair wet. The moment she saw me, she froze, and I was about to speak when a voice spoke behind her. "If that's room service, ask them to get us new sheets. We got carried away and messed up this one," the voice said. I recognized that voice, but I couldn't place it. Clara still stood there, not saying a word to me or moving. Before I could say a word, someone stood behind her in nothing but shorts. The moment he saw me, his eyes grew wide and his mouth fell open. It was John. For some backstory, John was my stepbrother. Same father, different mother, but you would never know because we did everything together. The day I met Clara, I told him. The day she agreed to go out with me, I told him. The day she agreed to be my wife, he was there. He was my best man at my wedding, for crying out loud. I even complained to him when Clara was acting up and he told me she'd come around. He even had the nerve to suggest that he might be cheating on me with someone else, but I guess he was the someone else. The thing was, I loved John so much that I was ready to give a kidney and a lung if he wanted me to, and I always thought the feeling was mutual, but joke's on me. Haha. I stood there speechless. Clara's sister had been able to snap out of her shock and asked others to follow her down to the car while I still stood there. I looked down at the floor for what felt like an eternity before I opened my mouth. "How long?" They both kept quiet. "How long has this been going on?" I shouted, which caused them both to flinch. They had never seen or even heard me raise my voice, so the shouting caught them off guard. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. Then John spoke up. "A year after Amanda was born." My head shot up and I looked at them. "What?" I managed to mutter. "Clara was going through some hard times. We met, had a couple drinks. One thing led to the other and we spent the night together. I wanted to stop, but Before John could say another word, I punched him across the face. Clara tried to talk to me, but in a fit of rage, I slapped her right across her face. "What do you want to tell me, huh? You're sorry? Or that you were lonely? Or maybe I was never around? No, tell me the excuse you want to give for sleeping with my stepbrother for 3 years while you gave me hell at home for 2 years and some months. You'd come home with an attitude, refuse to spend time with the kids. Your kids hate and nag at every single thing I do, but what do? I still love you. I make excuses for you to your kids. I make excuses for you to myself. I even complain to him." I point to John, who's holding his jaw. "But what do I get?" As I said this, I could feel the tears leaving my eyes, but I couldn't be bothered to clean them. Before either of them could say another word, I went back to the car, dropped off my sister-in-law and others, drove home, packed my things as well as my children's clothes, and took them to stay with my godmother. I just told her to look after them and that I would be back to pick them in a few days, but on no account should she allow Clara take them. I promised to explain everything to her when I got the chance to. After I dropped them off, I went back to my house, got the gun I secretly bought as a bachelor, and checked into a small hotel. This is my story so far. Clara has called and texted me countless times, but I haven't said Q word. It's been 3 days since this incident, and I haven't moved from the bed since then. I haven't eaten or drank anything. Neither have I gotten up to take a shower. My head is still fuzzy about everything. Most times I think to myself, what if Emeka was not truly my son? What if John was responsible for the pregnancy? Each time I get these thoughts, I shake it off with the response that I was there when Emeka came into this world, and that I'll always see and love him as my son. Update. It has always baffled me how someone could sleep peacefully after doing something so evil that the mere mention of it would cause chills. I'm still at the motel, and it's been 3 months since I got here, and a lot has happened since then. It's been a bumpy ride, and I honestly still can't say how I feel about the whole thing. For those of you who might be confused, or maybe this is your first time coming across my story, hi, my name is Greg, and I am in the middle of a messy situation. Now, for some context, I detailed what I was going through in my previous post, but I'll still do a quick recap. I had been married to the love of my life for 6 years, but recently find out that she had been cheating on me for 3 years, and you will never believe who she chose to sleep with. My stepbrother. I know it sounds hard to believe, and honestly, after all the while, I still find it hard to believe that was able to find myself in this kind of situation. This is the kind of stuff that you read about on the news or maybe watch on those YouTube channels, but here I am, actually going through it in reality. Now, my wife had been trying to reach me and my kids, but when she found out that she couldn't, she took a different approach. As I think about it now, I've just realized that she isn't the same woman I dated and fell in love with. Was she just hiding her true colors? Or were they always there and I was just too stupid to see them? Anyway, back to what she did that left a scar on my heart. I got a call from my dad one day asking me to come over. Now, my dad is Nigerian and grew up there before relocating to the United States of America, and, well, let's just say that we, my siblings and I, were brought up Nigerian style, and whenever we were summoned, it always meant one of us had done something and was going to be scolded at. After I got the call, I sat on the bed and thought long and hard as to what might have caused my father to summon me. No matter how hard I thought, I couldn't think of anything, so I just accepted that I would only know if I visit him. The next day, I got up early and got ready for my visit to my father. He lived it, so it took some time for me to get there, but when I eventually did, I remembered why I hardly visited. Everyone was smiling and welcomed me wholeheartedly while my dad just stood there. I walked up to him with my hand extended for a handshake. But that was not what I got. The moment I got close enough to him, he drew him closer to him, hugged me, let go of me, and then slapped me across the face. Yes, I know it sounds strange, but it happened so fast that I couldn't process anything. Why are you such a disappointment? It's hard enough that you didn't turn out like your siblings, but you also cheat on your wife? I was so stunned I couldn't react. I stood there, hand on my cheek, looking at my father, who was looking at me with a look on his face I had never seen before. He slapped me. My father had never raised his hands to hit us, so where was this coming from? What? I managed to blurt out after some seconds. He repeated his words, but this time he said it calmly, and after saying it, he sat down and looked at me, waiting for my response. Who said I cheated on her? I asked, while still looking at my father with my hand still on my cheek. My father took a deep breath, looked at me from my head down to my toes before speaking. Listen, marriage has its ups and downs, and even though you had never done things the right way, I never expected you to be one accused of cheating on his partner, he said while looking at me dead in the eyes. I finally let go of my cheek and tried to defend myself, but when I tried to mutter words, he asked me to leave. Yes, he asked me to leave his house and to add a cherry on top of the icing. He said that I had to call my wife, apologize to her, beg her to take me back, or I would be disowned by my family. I would be disowned. I would be disowned by my father for something I didn't do. The moment I reached my motel, I fell on my bed and started laughing. I laughed so much my tummy began to hurt, and before I knew it, I fell asleep. The next day, I decided to go and visit my kids at my mother's place. When I got there, they were so happy to see me, and as usual, asked when their mom was going to return from her trip. I had told them that she had traveled for a work trip, and since I had changed my children from their old school, I didn't have to worry about Clara going to look for them there. You see, my mom and my father had divorced and were living separately. They separated 2 years after Clara and I got married, but I never told Clara where she lives, and I'm thankful for that now. After spending time with my kids, I sat down with my mom and told her what happened between her husband and I. She was surprised that I wasn't given a listening ear and was threatened in such a way. Mom knew everything that had happened between Clara and I, so she was able to judge the situation fairly. She asked me to file for a divorce and fight for custody of my kid, but I reminded her that doing that would cause my father to get involved, and since he believes I'm the one at fault, he would hire the best lawyer money can afford and take my kids from me. I stayed till 7 p.m. before I went back to the motel. Once I got there, an idea popped up in my head and I called my sister-in-law to talk to her. We had been keeping in touch all this while she even told me that Clara had brought John home and fabricated a lie to their parents, which won them over. She also told me that Clara seemed different, but I told her that I didn't call her to talk about her sister and that I needed something from her. I told her what I needed and she agreed. The next day, I got the nerve to visit my house in Clara. When I got there, everything looked the same, but it felt different. I knocked on the door and Clara opened the door. She was shocked to see me, but she immediately removed the look of shock from her face and invited me in. I sat down and she offered me something to drink, but I declined. After what felt like hours, I cleared my throat and spoke up. "How are you, Clara?" Saying her name while looking at her sent tears to my eyes, but I had to bite my tongue to prevent myself from breaking down. "I'm fine. How have you been? You look pale. Have you been eating well?" She asked me with a hint of concern in her tone. I didn't respond immediately because what exactly was I to say? I was fine? Of course not, but I wasn't about to let her see that. "I'm all right, Clara. I've just been busy with work. Look, the reason I came back was because..." I stopped talking, looked her in the eye, then fell on my knees. "Please forgive me. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I'm sorry for not being a better husband, for not paying attention, for not loving you more, for failing as a husband. Clara, please forgive me." At this point, I was in tears. I was sobbing like a child while Clara sat there and looked at me helplessly. After a few minutes, she got up and knelt beside me. She wiped my tears and said that she had forgiven me, and that it was fine as long as I had realized my mistake. I had realized and asked her to let me back into her life. I also told her I had given them my blessings to be together, and she was so happy. She started doing this little dance that always made me smile. I decided to move back in with her, but as a housemate until I can find a place of my own. I also found out that they, John and Clara, were planning on getting married. John and I patched things up the following week, and honestly, everything was going so well. I brought the kids back, and they were so excited to see their mom. Now I know you're going to ask me what has come over me or possibly call me the biggest simp of all time, but I don't care. Seeing Clara happy made me happy, and that was all that mattered. Everything was going great at home. Clara and John would go out, and I would stay home to look after the kids. John and I quickly bonded again, and I was even made his best man. I still remember feeling like a girl who had been asked to dance. He told me about it. I helped with most of the planning and made sure everything went perfectly. Clara's parents have forgiven me for what I did to their daughter, but her sister wouldn't talk to me. She thinks I've lost my mind. What does she know? Love makes you do stupid things, and honestly, I wasn't even complaining. My father was pleased with my decision and even asked me to visit him anytime wanted. The wedding was held at Hollywood and Suites Hotel at El Segundo Boulevard Gardena, and we would have a big reception at their beautiful hall. Clara and John let me handle everything, and honestly, after doing all that for them, I felt so peaceful. I found myself wondering why I didn't do this sooner. I even found out that Clara was expecting. She told me first and made me swear not to tell John. I was so happy she trusted me enough to tell me about it. One day I saw Clara looking worried, and I asked her what the problem was. "It's nothing serious, just pre-wedding jitters, I guess," she told me while looking at her nails. I took her hands, gave it a soft kiss, and assured her that she had nothing to worry about. I had taken care of everything to the very last detail, and all they had to do was to be there and be happy. She smiled, gave me a long hug, and thanked me. When she was about to pull away, we both realized that our faces were so close to each other. Without warning, she kissed me and, well, I kind of kissed her back. Now, before you hate me, remember that I still loved her, and I guess those feelings never died. She didn't pull away from the kiss, and when she did, she simply smiled and said, "Thank you," to which I smiled back and left the room. I felt so happy I almost jumped up like a child. Tomorrow was the wedding, so I had to sleep early. Life is not always beautiful, but when you have something to look forward to every day, you stop seeing the thorns and only focus on the roses. I had been so focused on the thorns that I forgot how the roses smelt, but not anymore. I was going to give life another chance, but first I had to be there for two important people in my life at the moment. Finally, the wedding day had arrived, and Clara looked so stunning in her wedding dress. She wore a trumpet wedding dress with a long veil and a crown on her head, while John wore a three-piece slim fit suit with Oxford shoes. They both looked like something you'd read in a storybook, and I kid you not, I teared up when they both said their vows. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, and now it was time for the reception. After everyone had eaten and enjoyed themselves, I asked John to give me some time to give them a gift, and he agreed. You know, I just love happy endings. They always made me smile, so I wanted to give them one. Now I had installed a big screen and hired a projector because I planned to play a slideshow for them. The slideshow started with a picture of Clara as a baby, and then one of John as a child. That caused the crowd to smile and go, "Oh." Next were videos of Clara and John in cute moments, looking at each other, smiling and laughing. It was indeed a beautiful moment. Then, a video started playing. It was of me smiling into the camera. I can't wait to see her face when we go there. It's going to be priceless. I know that things have been going roughly, and that work has been hectic, but I still love you, and I will always love you. I spoke into the camera before asking someone in front of me if they were ready. The next slide was a video of me in the gym with Kenzie looking around for Clara. Then it showed the gym receptionist informing us that Clara wasn't a member of the gym. Then I turned the camera to myself and spoke. Did I forget the name of the gym? I was still asking myself questions when the voice of Clara's sister was heard, telling me that she had gotten her sister on the phone, so I looked into the camera, smiled, and said, "Let's go." Now, as you can imagine, the bride looks very uncomfortable in her seat while the groom is shooting me death glares, but I just smile back and turn my head back to the video. Now we had arrived at the hotel and we saw the receptionist talking to me. Then we slowly made our way up the hotel stairs. We arrived at the door and the saxophone can be heard in the background. As I was about to knock on the door, John stood up and demanded that the slideshow be stopped, but to everyone's surprise, my father told him to keep quiet and asked me to continue. Now, when I tell you that I had the biggest smile on my face, I continued with the slideshow and showed how I discovered about Clara and John. The entire room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the newlywed and shook their heads. My fellow Redditors, I wasn't done yet. You see, I recorded our entire conversation from that day and it was shown. The next slideshow was about Clara. She was seen with an older man and they were being intimate with each other. I paused at the moment and took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? How are we enjoying the wedding so far? Good? Okay. Now, some of you may know me as the evil ex-husband who cheated on his beautiful wife, and many of you hated me without even knowing me. I was even threatened by my own father because of her. I always wondered why, but guess what? Now I know. After I said this, I played the video, and guess what? The older man in the video was my father. Yes, my biological father. I found out about them after I made peace with Clara and John. But let's go back to the wedding. The moment my father's face appeared on the screen, I think I heard someone scream, but at that moment I didn't even care to turn back. I was too invested in how good the video had come out. The next slide was a picture, or rather more pictures of Clara and my father while an audio recording was playing. It was Clara on the phone with her friend, and she was saying how she had gotten pregnant again for my dad. She further revealed that my father was the biological father of our daughter, and that she was just going to do it all over again with John and tell him that he's the father. The final clip had me in it. It was the night Clara and I kissed. Well, we may have done more than that, and every second was recorded, but before it ended, a clip of John hitting on Clara's younger sister appeared. He said that he was only getting married to her so that he could take out a life insurance on her. He further stated that after he was done with her, Clara, he would come for her, her sister. After the clip ended, a little message popped up, "Happy married life to John and Clara. I hope you find what you've been searching for in each other. Psy, I hope you like this wedding gift of mine." After the screen went black, I bid everyone farewell and left the hall. I changed my phone number, took my kids, and left. Remember I said I couldn't understand how people could sleep peacefully after causing mayhem. I still can't because I've been sleeping like a baby since that day. I Still have my kids with me, and I'm currently with Kenzie, Clara's sister. We're not together. Yet who knows? Something might happen later. That's all. I hope my story was able to brighten your day.